Hello, YouTube. It's me, Simon Miller, and we're back to do some musings on a Monday. I know I said Sunday. Sometimes it's Monday. You just never know. But I had a crazy weekend, so we're doing it on Monday. Now I know we're a little past it, but the feedback I got a lot this week, or at least over the last 7 days, was Simon. Valentine's Day is here on the Wednesday. Now, I'll be honest with you, I never really put too much stock in Valentine's Day. I see Valentine's Day as a nice excuse if you want to go out and do something nice, but ultimately I think, you should just be doing nice things for people all the time because why should you need a day? You should just be a nice person and maybe sometimes smash your chin into your microphone as you're doing a video. That aside, I totally get it. A lot of people get in touch and the connotation around what Valentine's is and what it may mean if you don't have a partner and social media and all those kind of things makes people feel lonely, right? And that's what a lot of people said this week. They said, I really feel lonely. And there's a knock-on effect for that as well because, sometimes I overthink. Overthink Valentine's Day or any kind of event. You may see your mates announce their engagement or something on Facebook, and you're like, "Oh, great! Now I feel like crap." Now I completely understand that, and I completely understand. A lot of people, the phrase they use is, "I'm so alone," and of course, it's going to how you're going to feel should it be on a day of romance. And you don't feel like you have that romance in your life. This is the way I kind of come at it. When we're talking about relationships, we're talking about all relationships here. So we're talking about your partner, your friends, your family, whatever. I think it's just really important not to take those things for granted and to remember that, you do have people in your life. You do have a support network. I remember someone tweeted me the other day and they said, but Simon, I just don't have a lot of friends. And that, I think it depends how you look at it, right? Because I don't think anybody has loads and loads of friends. You may have loads and loads of acquaintances, but I think, you can prove me wrong, of course, but I think in terms of good friends that you'd be happy to share your emotions with and talk and sort of unload, I imagine a lot of people don't have a lot of friends in that regard. I mean, I've probably got 4, maybe. I bet I just offended loads of people. I'm not going to name them, but I would imagine maybe 3 or 4 that I actually sort of open up and talk to on a sort of a super deep level or anything like that. So I think, even if you say I don't have a lot of friends, well, you can kind of twist that in a weird way. It means there are some friends, even if you've got one good friend. One good friend, I think, is worth its weight in gold, right? That to me, as long as you feel open with that person and you appreciate that person and there's a good rapport between the two of you, that's all you need. Because if they are a good friend, you can talk about the same thing for a year and they're not going to give a shit. Every now and then they may slap you around the face and be like, come on now. But ultimately, even if you came back, they're going to understand that you just need somebody to talk to. And as we always say on these things, talking and getting your feelings out there is so important. I'll never buy into this whole thing about not communicating with people or not being open about how you feel. Even if maybe you think your feelings a little bit nutty. Okay, we'll get it out there and hopefully the nutness will die down once you've opened up about it. But in terms of sort of romance, now, it's a really hard thing to talk about because it's different for everybody, right? There is no right or wrong. There is no, there is good and bad relationships, but, that can, one man's heaven is another's hell. And the thing I always go back to is Chris Rock. Chris Rock, in one of his stand-ups, says, if you're going to be a crack addict, your partner got to be a crack addict too. And it's true. I mean, it doesn't work. Don't take that too specifically. You can have differences and be different people and operate in a different fashion. But, his point is, if there's something really extreme, like someone's into doing crack and you're sitting there watching them doing crack going, I don't like this, probably eventually that's gonna fall aside. I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration. It's a joke, but I always think that do work. I'm not going to get into specifics either on my own personal stuff, but maybe in many ways I'm not the best person to talk about this. My relationship history has been it's not been bad by any stretch of the imaginations. I've had ups and downs, lol, haha, what culture stuff. But it depends how you deem if you go into a relationship counselor, for example. You may want someone that's been in a long-term marriage or has a big family. I don't have either of those things, so you may think, Miller, what are you talking about? But I want to focus more on the way, because I think let me come back round here. So my thing is, I think a lot of people are searching for happiness in relationships, and that is perfectly understandable, and there's nothing wrong with that to a point. However, and I'm sure you've read and seen Instagram posts up the wazoo about this, you really do have to find happiness within yourself. You cannot ask anybody else or expect anybody else to be the source of your happiness, because if you are, not only is it a little bit unfair on that other person, but But they're never going to be able to fill that hole in the way you want it to, because you're not happy within yourself. You're still not going to be happy within yourself. We talked about it before. You want money and you want all these things, but they are all different parts that lead to happiness as opposed to happiness within itself. So, the way I've kind of always seen relationships, I absolutely do think it should be like, people hate this, but yeah, you should be partners, right? You should be helping each other out and supporting each other and giving and taking and compromising and all those things. Of course, you're different people, you're different human beings. You cannot expect anyone to operate on the same level as you do. But ultimately, you have to make sure that they're happy within themselves and that you're happy within yourself, and then use that happiness to then sort of focus on the specific things that get people down and get people stressed, and sometimes people struggle to get with. And that's what a partner should be. That's what a friend should be as well. That's what your mum or your dad or whoever can be, have that relationship with. But obviously when you find it in a partner, it's a bit different because you have intimacy there and all that kind of stuff as well. But that's the way, if you do kind of get a bit down, or maybe the whole reason for your anxiety or your mental health or your stresses or your struggles is the fact that I just need a partner. I don't necessarily think that's going to be true, because they can fill a certain hole, but I would imagine there's more. This is my assumption, I don't know, but I would imagine there is more there to look into, and maybe you need to do a bit of work on yourself. Maybe you need to give yourself a bit of TLC, as they say. Maybe you need to take all the energy you're kind of focusing into finding a partner and put it into yourself. I always hear things like that. People say when people are going through a breakup and you're forlorn and you're stressed and there's melancholy there and you miss this person, which is all perfectly fine and normal. And that's another thing we'll talk about in a minute, actually, how that you shouldn't beat yourself up about that. But, imagine you took all that effort and all that focus and all that thinking and you put it into you. Imagine you cared about yourself as much as you're caring about this other person. It's going to help you no end. It's going to get you to a level where you're ultimately going to feel better about yourself. And then maybe you find happiness. And then when you find that happiness, then you can go out and have an even stronger relationship, because you know that this is adding rather than being sort of the rock and foundation for everything. And that does come back, to the, if you do go through a breakup, of course you're going to be upset. Of course you're going to go through a somewhat of a grieving process, because someone you've been there, who's been there for you, you've been texting, you've been calling, you've been seeing them a lot, you've been having a good times. All of a sudden they're not there. That's like chopping your arm off. Every day you wake up for a long time, be like, where the hell is my arm? And how am I going to operate? How am I going to go on without my arm? Because you're so used to using your arm. And it is tough. Of course, I honestly believe, I think we said this before, that it is the equivalent of somebody dying. I think in many ways, if sort of an old person passes away, that's obviously still sad and devastating. It's going to affect you in different ways. But I think a really bad sort of relationship breakup can almost be worse than an old person dying, because when an old person dies, you can kind of justify it in your head by going, well, they were old, that's life. I mean, that's something else we've got to deal with, mortality. But ultimately, this is just what happens. Whereas a breakup, you may not have seen it coming, or maybe you didn't want it, or there's 1,000 things. And you question yourself, and they're still there. They're still out there. That's a really difficult thing to come to terms with. But I think the most important thing that you can do is remember that you matter, I guess, for lack of a better term. So, on Valentine's Day, when you're sat there and you're feeling sad and you still matter. You're still a human being. And, making sure you invest that time and love and care, TLC, into yourself, I think is really important. I don't think a lot of us do it. I think a lot of us do seek maybe validation or our own self-worth in other people. And again, that's perfectly understandable, because how nice is it to meet someone that you get on with and they make you laugh and they tell you you're great and all these things. Like, this is great. Of course it's great. Who doesn't want that? And it's really, really important. To give you a bit of sort of personal stuff from my end, I spent through various reasons, but I spent not a lot of my 20s, but a point in my 20s where I was like, maybe I don't want that and I want to focus on other things. And now, a man who's in his 30s, now I've kind of come to understand, actually, no, it was the other way. Then I was pushing it to one side because it's scary. It's terrifying to give yourself over to somebody like that because you don't know what's going to happen. Whereas now, in 2018, I'm perfectly happy and comfortable with saying, actually, no, that is something I value and it is something that I need. And while I have, achieved in so other areas of my life, now I'd like someone to share that with. And that's a journey, and that's a process in itself. Coming to terms is terrible. It makes it sound bad, but accepting that, I think, is a big. It is important because that way you can accept. Okay, yes, I do want a companion. I do want someone who fills that void or whatever within me. However, I'm also going to take time for myself. I'm also going to make sure I do the things I love, that I'm passionate about, so that when I do meet that person, I'm a better human being for me, which means I'll also be a better human for them, and I won't rely on them too much. I think there's going to be a certain amount of reliance. That's what a relationship is. But I think finding that balance is key. And just as a kind of a fleeting wrap up, I think just make sure to learn from your experiences, and while you should always use them to, what's the word I'm looking for here? But to be better if you do happen to fall out of one relationship and go into the next. Make sure they don't cloud your mind. Make sure they don't get the better of you. Always take a moment for yourself. Always take a moment to step back and go, you know what? I'm just going to let life. I'm just going to let go. I'm just going to go on life's ride, and I'm just going to see what happens. And believe in yourself. And if somebody else is going to believe in you too, that's great. And if not, it doesn't matter, because you believe in yourself, and you can walk away. You can walk away with your head held high. So if you did feel lonely over the last week, or maybe you're still feeling a bit lonely now, don't worry about it. You're not alone. Millions of people are feeling that way. But how about today, you take all of that, we'll go with suffering. Don't like the word, it's a bit much, but we'll take all that suffering and you invest it in you. Doesn't mean you go out and buy something crazy or anything like that, but it just means anytime you feel that kind of overwhelming, maybe it's anxiety or depression or whatever, do something nice for you. Whether it's you watch a movie, you play a game, maybe have a little bit of junk food, right? Don't do that loads, but having a little bit of junk food sometimes makes you feel better. Do something, go to a spa day, go to the gym, ride a bike, kick the wall, whatever you're into. How about you invest that time in you, and then maybe tomorrow you feel a little bit better. But just remember that you definitely, I am so alone. I get that feeling, but given that everyone feels that way, hopefully you can take some solace in the sense that you're not completely alone, because a lot of people are feeling the same way. And eventually, if you're a good person and you believe in yourself and you got good values and you got good morals, I think it will all work out. That's what I think anyway. Thank you for watching me muse for the last 10 minutes or so. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. You can follow me on Twitter at SimonAir316. And that's it, really. Just thank you for supporting all this nonsense. It's quite... Actually, I will say this. A lot of people, in person as well, because I was out and about the last week a lot of people came up to me and they said incredibly nice things about these videos. Some were very touching and humbling, and I didn't realise how much stock a lot of people took in them. It kind of blew me away a little bit. So that was lovely to everybody that said things like that. So I will continue to do them, because the whole point is I want to give something back, which sounds cheesy and ridiculous and over the top, but it's true. You can think I'm a cockwoggle. Where did that come from? That's an old Miller Report joke. You can think that as much as you want, but it's true. That's what I want to do. I think that we're all struggling, and if anything I can do to even if it's one person, if one person watches this and goes, you know what, I feel better now, that makes me... Again, it's quite selfish, really, but that makes me feel good. And that, it's not about that. I want to try and help people. However, that is a nice ramification. Actually, I tell you, that's another thing you can start doing. Me and my friend have just started doing this. Next time you're in a coffee shop, just buy the person behind you a coffee. Just do that. Whoever it is, you're not hitting on them. It's nothing like that. It could be man, woman, child, elephant. Just say, and I'll buy the person behind. They order, you tap your card, you walk away. You'll feel great. And it's a selfish act. But you walk away thinking, oh, wow, mate, I just did something nice. Just do something nice. It's incredible how doing something nice will boost your mood. Anyway, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.